Imagine building a $100 million mathematically perfect aerodynamic calculator and then just throwing it directly into an industrial blender.
Honestly, that is the best way to describe what happened.
Yeah.
It's just total chaos.
Right. I mean, you put a car in a wind tunnel, the telemetry gives you this pristine line of data, and the pit wall is looking at a screen predicting a victory down to the millisecond.
Yeah, but then, the human element takes over.
Exactly. The sheer chaos of 20 drivers fighting for the same piece of tarmac just completely shreds the script.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are setting the stage immediately today.
Oh, absolutely. We're diving straight in.
We are looking at the dramatic 2026 Formula One Hungarian Grand Prix, which was, the final race before the mandated 2-week summer shutdown.
High pressure, high stakes.
Always. So, just a quick overview of our sources for today. We are pulling from the official F1 website's timing and tire data, and we've combined that with the official race highlights transcript.
Which gives us a really solid foundation of both the raw data and the on-track narrative. It really does. And our mission today is to decode the strategic masterclasses, the on-track chaos, and how the race just slipped away from some drivers while falling right into the lap of others.
Because that data, those perfect models we talked about, they completely fracture when you introduce unpredictable variables.
Yeah, variables like track evolution, thermal degradation, and, let's be honest, pure driver ego. Okay, let's unpack this, starting right at the launch.
Every great race starts with the launch, and Budapest just immediately threw several drivers into that blender.
It really did. When those 5 red lights go out, the first thing we see is George Russell suffering an anti-stall. He just fades backward.
Yeah, which is just a devastating momentum killer right off the line.
It's brutal. And then Charles Leclerc gets a completely poor launch on the dirty side of the grid.
Right, because starting on the dirty side at the Hungaroring is always a nightmare for grip.
Exactly. So he has to instantly swerve to keep Max Verstappen at bay. And that actually leads to Leclerc fighting his own Ferrari teammate.
Which causes a massive ripple effect behind them. I mean, HR had to take some serious avoiding action right in the middle of the pack.
Right, just to avoid a pileup. But at the very front, it's a completely different story. It is a pure McLaren versus McLaren battle.
And what a battle it was.
Oh, incredible. Lando Norris starts ahead on pole, but Oscar Piastri, starting third, executes this utterly beautiful dummy move.
It was brilliant. He uses all the grip on the outside racing line at turn 2, gets the car turned, and just forces Norris wide onto the dust to snatch the lead.
It honestly reminded me of a brutal basketball crossover. You know, like when a point guard fakes one way, breaks the defender's ankles, and just takes the open lane.
That is a spot-on analogy. He completely manipulated Norris's track position.
But I have to ask you, with the Ferraris struggling to make the softer rubber work and the track being so dirty on the inside, how much of this lap 1 chaos was dictated by the starting grid position versus, pure driver reaction?
Well, it's a mix, but grid position is massive here. When you start on that dusty inside line, your tires just spin. You cook the surface of the rubber instantly.
So the tire is basically out of its thermal window before turn 1.
Exactly. Piastri's genius was having the spatial awareness to park his car on the high grip line and force Norris into that low grip trap.
Which is just phenomenal racecraft. And that initial scramble for position really set up a tense strategic battle, right? It forced these early pit stops to gain an advantage.
Yeah, the dirty air was chewing up tires much faster than any one model.
Right. So Lewis Hamilton, unable to wait any longer behind the Red Bull, dives into the pits for fresh, hard tires.
Now, what's fascinating here is the data profile of those hard tires. If we look at the F1 site data, hard tires are the slowest for single lap pace, but they are the most durable.
Right. They take forever to warm up.
Exactly. They have high thermal inertia. But Hamilton completely defies that. He uses the fresh, raw mechanical grip immediately to attack.
Yeah, he executes this critical outlap, including a totally old-school pass around the outside of Lindblad at turn 5.
Which is just vintage Hamilton.
It is. And he secures his best middle sector of the race right there. So Verstappen sees this, pits for a slick stop, and emerges just as Hamilton approaches.
And it's a drag race. Hamilton gets the apex first and takes the position.
But Verstappen, who comes from, as the sources put it, miles back, reclaims the spot with this incredibly late lunge, literally moving under braking.
Which is highly contentious. The commentary from the transcript specifically noted that moving under braking like that is, quote, nice action, but it's not right.
Yeah, because when you change direction under heavy braking, you ruin the aerodynamic predictability for the guy behind you.
Exactly. The trailing car gets a blast of dirty air right when they're on the absolute edge of locking up.
So does the risk of moving under braking outweigh the reward for Verstappen there, especially at a stage in the race where preserving tire life is just crucial?
From a pure data standpoint, it's a terrible risk. You could flat spot the tire or cause a crash. But Verstappen drives by deterrence.
Right, it's psychological. He's saying, if you want to pass me, it's going to hurt.
Precisely. He's establishing dominance over the telemetry.
But while they were fighting that aggressive battle, the actual race lead was being decided by something else entirely. Not the front runners, but the back markers.
The absolute bane of any race strategist's existence.
Yeah. I mean, McLaren needs a clean stop to manage their drivers. Piastri pits, but he emerges into what the highlights transcript literally called a nightmare of traffic.
It was painful to watch.
Yeah.
The lapped cars were completely ignoring the blue flags.
Completely. Piastri actually makes physical contact with the Williams, and then he's heavily impeded by Carlos Sainz. The commentary was screaming, "People are lost, get out of the way."
He was forced so far onto the curb, he is incredibly lucky to have stayed in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, he could have easily broken the suspension. Meanwhile, conversely, Norris gets a perfectly clean stop. He takes track position, and the race lead right from his teammate.
Leaving Piastri in what the sources called plain fury.
I can't even imagine. Has something like this happened often?
Honestly, no. It's the first time a backmarker so heavily intervened in a race result at the front since Esteban Ocon hit Verstappen in Brazil.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that.
And before that, you have to go back to Jos Verstappen hitting Juan Pablo Montoya. It's incredibly rare for blue flags to be ignored like this.
It's like running a marathon at a world record pace, being perfectly in the zone, and then suddenly having to dodge oblivious shoppers on a busy sidewalk.
That is exactly what it feels like for the driver. It destroys your rhythm and your tires.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does a team possibly manage a driver's mindset when an external factor completely ruins their race like that?
The race engineer basically has to become an emotional vacuum. You can't match their anger or they'll spiral.
So you just feed them clinical data.
Exactly. Delta times, brake bias adjustments.
Wow.
You force their brain to focus on the next corner, not the injustice of the back marker.
Wow, just rebooting them mid-lap. But unfortunately for Piastri, that fury eventually turned to despair, which triggered a really chaotic final phase of the race.
Yeah, the mechanical strain of dodging that traffic often has delayed consequences.
Right. So on lap 56, a day that looked like a guaranteed victory for Piastri ends as he suddenly slows from second place and has to retire the car.
Heartbreaking for him, and it immediately triggers a virtual safety car.
Which changes everything. Hamilton uses the VSC to pit for soft tires. Now, the softs are the fastest, but they have very limited endurance, right?
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Hamilton's desperate switch to the softs was this really aggressive bid to reach the end under the slower VSC Delta.
But then disaster strikes. He gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
An unforced error that you rarely see from a 7-time world champion.
It's just a brutal mistake. So he comes out with this penalty hanging over him and immediately has to battle 19-year-old Kimi Antonelli right on the white pit exit line.
And Antonelli's race is a whole story in itself.
Oh, absolutely. The sources note that Antonelli had pleaded with his team earlier to go long on his favorite compound, but Mercedes denied him.
Trusting the pit wall algorithms over the driver's organic feeling in the car.
Exactly. So they end up fighting on the pit exit, and Antonelli, who was debating on the radio about who crossed the timing line first, eventually chooses to give the place back to Hamilton.
A mature move from the young driver, but the chaos wasn't over.
Not at all. The lap traffic continued to struggle to get out of the way. It even brought Hamilton and Antonelli together on track at one point.
Yeah, the commentators were very clear about this. It proves exactly what Formula One would look like if blue flags were abolished.
It would just be a total mess. Leaders would ruin their tires trying to pass cars that are 3 seconds a lap slower.
It would fundamentally break the sport. The persistent blue flag issues really ruined the strategy for everyone trying to navigate through it.
So after all of that, the penalties, the traffic nightmares, and the heartbreak, it's time to look at where the dust finally settled on the podium.
And what a podium it was.
Lando Norris wins. It is McLaren's 14th win at this track.
A huge milestone for the team.
Definitely. And it's Norris's first win of the season, his first win as the reigning world champion, and his first trip to the top steps since Sao Paulo last November.
He really needed that to break the drought. And right behind him, Max Verstappen, who just refused to leave the fight all day, finishes second.
He never yields an inch. Then we have 19-year-old Kimi Antonelli taking third, which crucially extends his lead in the World Championship.
A phenomenal result for him under immense pressure.
And finally, Charles Leclerc manages to stay within 5 seconds of Hamilton on track, which means he officially takes fourth place, dropping Hamilton to fifth due to that pit lane penalty.
Those 5 seconds are a lifetime in modern F1.
So, what does this all mean? I think it just summarizes that this race is a testament to the unpredictable nature of F1.
Absolutely. You can have all the models in the world, but human error and track chaos will always play a part.
Exactly. Back markers, pit lane speed limits, sheer determination, they all completely rewrote the script today. Which brings me to a thought for you, our listener, to mull over.
A big question.
It really is. Think about the lapped traffic issue today. If back markers ignoring blue flags can literally decide who wins a Grand Prix, as we saw with Piastri's ruined race, is the current blue flag system fundamentally broken?
It's definitely something the FIA might have to look at.
Right. Or is navigating that deeply unpredictable, unfair chaos simply the mark of a true champion? Mull that over during the F1 summer break.
It's certainly going to be a hot topic for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, without a doubt. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you after the break.